In this demonstration, we're going to learn how to add roles and features and also learn a little bit about Server Manager. Now, I've recently logged on to the actual server console, and there's one of two screens that you could possibly be looking at. One screen is, of course, this, which is what I prefer. I tend to clear the tiles, but maybe because I've been doing this for so many years that the tiles just seem like extra things to look at. I am going to press Control Escape on my keyboard, and you're going to see that brings back our start screen or the tiles. So whichever way you're looking at it is going to be fine. So what I'd like to show you is here are the start tiles if this is your starting point on a brand new server. And again, for those of us who have gone through the ranks of many versions of Windows Server, this is a little new and a little, I think, overwhelming and oversimplified. But you'll see that we have a link here to Server Manager. As a matter of fact, on a brand new install or a brand new login, you're going to see that it's a link, and I guess I can say it's like an administrator's dream. What do? I go into Server Manager or the computer or PowerShell or Control Panel. So they really have thrown the server admin stuff right in front of us. Now, if I just wanted to go to the desktop and work from there, I can always click on the desktop. So from here, again, Control Escape, which I always used to bring up the Start menu, actually brings up the Start tiles. I can get into Server Manager a variety of ways, and you'll see right down here I can give a click, and that's also going to bring me in it. So however you wish to find Server Manager is up to you. Like any other Microsoft product, there's a number of ways, so you just find your favorite. So here in Server Manager, it is a brand new interface, so we'll do a quick little tour. Here, of course, we're on our dashboard. On our dashboard, we get a chance to configure this local server. They're trying to put right front and center what we might want to do next. We can, however, look at the local server and everything that are property-based for the local server. So you will see on a fresh install, it has this computer name, it's in part of the work group, the firewall is on, and it's connected to what it considers a public network. Remote management has been enabled, remote desktop is enabled. We've not teamed up the NICs. It does tell us about the Ethernet. You'll see we're running IP4 addresses by using DHCP, but IP6 is enabled. So it's actually quite a nice summary of the local server to tell you immediately what's going on. Of course, we have the operating system, we have the hardware information that this is installed on, and as I move over to the right, you'll see there's even more information, last updates, Windows update, last checked for, and then everything about error reporting, time zones, our product ID, processors, RAM, and of course all of our disk space. So first things first, they have designed this well that in a single click we get the summary that, again, most administrators are looking for. If I go to all servers, we're assuming that this is going to be part of a network or a domain and servers that I happen to manage. Now, we are in a test environment right now, so it being a test environment, this is the first server out of the build, so you're not going to see a whole list. If you want to see about your file and storage services, you can give that a click. Again, we have the servers we can pick from, the volumes, the disks, any of the storage pools that we've configured. So once again, anything you ever needed to know on a new server is right there for you in Server Manager. Now, we are eventually going into this large section with a big print, but before we start adding roles and features, we're going to go ahead and move down, and you're going to see that in these tiles, it does tell us about the roles and the server groups. So we have all the file and storage services, the local server, how we're going to manage it, events, services, performance, best practice analyzer results, and again, this server, or if we have remote administration for all the other servers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Add Roles and Features. So under Add Roles and Features, you will see that we have role-based or feature-based installation, or we can do a remote desktop services installation, which means we're going to install the required role for virtual desktop infrastructure, so we can create virtual machine-based or session-based desktop deployment. So what does that mean? It means if I have desktops that we want to keep virtual so that what's going on the physical machines in the network can be independent of what they really need to see, then we have some remote desktop services features that we can play with. Now, I am moving the screen around a little bit because of the quality of shooting. The resolution we get to use to make it nice and clear for you means it's a little big, and sometimes I'll have to move around for our next buttons. So I've decided to install a role. I get to select a server or a virtual disk in which to install roles and features. And you'll see we're going to select a server from the pool. And of course, that's this one. Now, if you have a whole lot of servers, notice that you even have filters. Now, filters are important because when I install a network, there is some sort of naming convention. Now, some of them are not filtering. I have one customer that wanted Camelot, so it's kind of hard to filter out King Arthur versus all of these by using a wildcard. But if you do know you're looking for one particular server and you know the name, you type it in and it comes up. And a lot of other organizations, I use a naming convention that very distinctly names the type of servers that they're running. So if it's a domain controller, it's going to have DC, and then we're going to number them. If it's a file server, it's going to be FS. So based on that, if you're looking for all your file servers or your domain controllers in a larger environment, naming conventions can help you quite a bit when you're trying to select servers and see what you have out there. For now, of course, I'm going to pick the only one we have. And notice here we have everything from Active Directory to application to DHCP, DNS, fax. They're all in there. I'm going to pick Hyper-V. And what I like about this is when you install a role, notice that for Hyper-V, the following tools are required to manage this feature but don't have to be installed on the same server. So we need remote server administration tools, otherwise known as RSAT. We have Hyper-V management tools, which is the Windows PowerShell version, and the GUI management tools. If they are installed somewhere else for remote management, that's fine, but notice here we can check off include the management tools, if applicable. I'm going to add them all. So as I'm adding roles, this is all the roles that I personally need, meaning the Hyper-V roles, but notice it's going to go into the features themselves. So it gives you a chance to see if there's something else that you need installed. Now again, remember it already said that we needed these, so it's already checked off for us. And notice here we need WOW64 support, but it's already installed. So you can tell right off the bat what's installed and what's not. Not only is it checked, but the entire thing is grayed out, basically saying it's not a new selection, it's something you already have. And same thing with Windows PowerShell. Now notice here is a check mark because it's a single feature. Notice Windows PowerShell, I can expand it, and there are 3 out of 4 features. So that's why we have essentially a little square in there. It's not checked meaning everything, it means we've got some selections. Now there is PowerShell Web Access. If you didn't know what a particular feature was, meaning you're questioning why it wasn't installed, notice as soon as I click on it, it tells me all about this feature. So in this example, it's a web gateway that an organization and its users can manage the remote computers by using the Windows PowerShell in a web browser. So that's actually kind of slick, and that is fairly new with Windows Server 2012. We don't need it here, but the point really being, as you're adding roles, as you're adding features, know what the selection indicators are, and know that if you're not sure what something is, you can always click on it, and you can always find out. So now that I've hit Next, we're going to stop on this screen. Notice we can virtualize our server workloads. There's a nice little description of what it is we're installing. And then I always like the things to note. And sometimes we're installing, we're usually in a happy click type mode, meaning next, 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 next. But I like to stop because sometimes, not all the time, they will give you a couple things that maybe you didn't realize. So notice here, before you install, maybe you should identify which network connections on this server you want to use for setting up the virtual switches. Now, this is something I was already prepared for, so I already have a little sticky note next to my keyboard that says, this is the network we're working within. But if I hadn't done that, I would have had a chance to basically say, oh yeah, hit cancel or hit minimize and go do my homework. So notice we can pick our Ethernet adapters. If we had more than one adapter, they would all list. So for a Hyper-V network, you have virtual machines that are going to be seen by a network. So it might be that you have two network cards, one for the virtual machines and one for the live network, depending on the environment. Now, this is actually a test server on a test environment, so I don't necessarily have any worries, but it might be that I need to segregate that so that the server is available to my network, but the virtual machines would only be available to the test environment. So notice here, we can be configured to send and receive live migrations of virtual machines on the server, which means we can enable any network on the server to be used for these live migrations, which literally means the virtual machine is working on server A, and I need to move it over to server B, maybe a different hardware pool. So we can go ahead and select that, but for now we don't need it. I can always come back and make this choice. Default location for the virtual hard drive files. Notice the default location is in the public folder. The reason that it's in public is because any user that logs on or any administrator that logs on to Hyper-V would be able to start and manage any of the Hyper-V machines. This is something a lot of people don't think of because you do have more than one administrator. So if I log on as someone who has permission to the Hyper-V server or an administrator, but the previous person had put these in a location that I don't have access to, then I wouldn't be able to work with any of these virtual machines. So the public directory is a perfect place to put them. We're going to install the roles. If it's required, we can tell it to restart it automatically. I usually, unless I'm going to walk away while something installs, like to install it myself or reboot it myself just so that I can make sure everything is where I need it to be. But for now, we're going to hit install. So as Server Manager adds its roles and features, especially if you are a new systems administrator, meaning there's enough knowledge and sometimes it's overwhelming, the more you read, the more it all kind of works together. So get used to actually watching installation progress, understanding roles, understanding features that are part of those roles so that you can kind of start working towards how everything works together. The other note about this wizard is you'll see down here, again, that text that no one takes the time to read. You can close this wizard without interrupting the running tasks. You can view the progress or reopen the page again and click notifications, and then of course task details. So this right here is a wonderful note. Not everyone notices it. I like it because like anyone else, sometimes I'm installing something and I've got that question of, do I in fact close the window or is it going to halt it? You just don't always know, so it'll go ahead and take the time to tell you. So you'll see from here, the feature's installed, a restart is pending. You have to restart this server in order to finish the installation. So remember I said don't automatically restart it. So for now, I can hit close. And then from here, again, if I have other things to do, I can go ahead and do them, but I just wanted to show you that we have a notification that's bright yellow. We hadn't necessarily seen that there before. So anytime there's something that you need to know in Server Manager, you're going to get that notification up at the top. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close out of Server Manager, and I'll go ahead and restart the machine, and when you see us again, we'll be right back to this interface. So we've done our reboot. We are back. We're going to go ahead and start back up Server Manager. The part that we can't show you only because of as the server's rebooting, it's a little hard to record what's going on with the server. Just like a Windows update or anything else, as it reboots, it does take a little while, which is why I saved you from watching, but you'd see that it's just configuring roles and services as it's slowly starting Windows. So upon this first reboot, it opens right back into Server Manager because it's the last place we needed to be, and you're going to see that we can still configure this local server. We can add roles and features again. We can add other servers to manage, so it lands in that console. You can create server groups for administration purposes. And as I travel down roles and server groups, let's look at the local server. Remember, we also have this link right out here. So as I go into local server, we have manageability, events, performance, best practices, results. But as this console slowly loads, notice what I also have here is the role that I've just added called Hyper-V. So when you click on local server and as you come into this dashboard, any of the major roles that you really need to manage are going to list right here in the left-hand navigation pane to go right back in. So you'll see here's my Hyper-V. Here's it is online. We're going to look for any events. I have an event viewer for Microsoft Hyper-V. And you'll see shut down physical computers, stopping saving all virtual machines. So notice that the server was actually up and running, but then we did that reboot, so it's just giving us that little warning.